Hello, good evening and welcome to Open Your Mind Radio. You have myself, Alan James.
Myself, Stephen George. Good evening.
Good evening. It's Sunday the 7th of June 2015. The sun is shining and there's a bit of heat out there, which makes a bloody change because some people have had their fires on and the heating on and everything else, and it just didn't feel like June at all. But today is not too bad. What do you think, Steve?
Yeah, it actually kind of feels a little bit summery today. I mean, again, yesterday, what was yesterday? Saturday. And the rain absolutely bucketed down here yesterday where we are, at the top of and at the bottom of Walton's Mountain. So yeah, it was actually bucketing down yesterday. It doesn't look like summer, it doesn't feel like summer at all. It feels like winter. But no, as Alan often says, you know it's summer because the rain is warmer.
That's it. I'm actually in a t-shirt, which isn't too bad for me, because I feel the cold, so that's not too bad. Right, our guests on the show. We have two guests on the show tonight. John Flaherty is going to be on the first segment of the show, and John, we're going to be talking to John about addiction. And basically what we might do is talk to John about addiction to power, and, you know, the people like Cameron and Kenny, and what they see in the power, and what the addiction is, and everything kind of related to that. And the second part of the show, the second segment, we're going to have Anthony Hughes. Now, you all know about Richard Cumbers. Richard was on the show. We talked to Richard about the Pain Genie, and we've sorted out the seminar for the Pain Genie. I'll be talking about that later on. Well, Anthony Hughes, Anthony and Richard know each other. Anthony has a clinic in Dublin, in Stillorgan. And so people can book, they can ring up Anthony, National-Medicine IE, I believe, is Anthony's website. We'll find out later from Anthony anyway. And you can book up and go down, and we'll all find out all about what Anthony does and the treatments he offers and everything else. All alternative, by the way. They're not pharmaceutical as far as I know. But before we do that, let's find out what the communication channels are.
Yes, and before we do that, we'll just mention as well, Anthony does offer the Pain Genie technology. He offers that service as well. So we're gonna really hook up with him tonight and discuss that further. Anyway, communication channels are as follow.
The communication channels are email info@oymireland.com, by phone 046 927 1212, and you can also contact us direct through the OYM chat room.
Yes, 04692711212 is the number for the studio. What else we got? We have Facebook, the anti-social media. If you want to communicate, you can communicate with us there. You can log on, see what we've been up to. The link is on the website. That is OYMradio.com. You will see the Facebook link on the left-hand side. We also have the 3 streams there for your listening pleasure. We've the OYM stream, the United We Strike stream in the US of A, and also People's Internet Radio. We will be monitoring both of the chat rooms on the respective websites there for questions this evening for our guests. And what else? If you are on the Android or iPhone devices, we are on the TuneIn Radio app as well. So you can check us out there. And finally, YouTube. If you want to check out some of our podcasts and YouTube videos, you will find us on there as well. Again, just go to YouTube and type in Open Your Mind. Alan.
Cheers, Steve. Before we go on, we'd just like to send condolences out to John Harris's family. John passed away in the last week, and he was a chap that exposed a lot of things that was going on and got people to question the authority and what went on and the whole legal system. And I'm not going to say free man, because he was more than that. He exposed the things that were important for people to know, to find out about, and the corruption in the system. And he passed away. So just condolences. And if people want to go over to YouTube, if you've never heard of John Harris, pop over to YouTube and type in his name, and you'll actually see some of the talks he did regarding exposing the system and how the system is corrupt and what's going on. So worth a while. You learn an awful lot of stuff. Recommended. John Harris is his name. Now, we've been in touch we've talked before on the show about time banking, and we wanted to look at a way of, if we can, roll out time banking over here in Ireland on a per county basis. Now, I know there's a couple of let system around, but they're not really established. And ideally what we'd like to do is roll out a system where we could actually have a per county time bank, or maybe a per town time bank, depending on the interest and the amount of people interested in actually joining the time bank and setting one up. So what we're going to do is we have a lady coming on to the show next week called Karen Morris from timebank.org, and she's going to be telling us all about the time banking next week. So tune in. Don't make that a point. Put it in your diary and tune in, and you'll find out all about time banking and how they're using it in the UK, and they're benefiting from it from local communities, because nobody has money, but they have the energy, they have the labour. And that's what time banking is all about, giving your labour, giving your energy. So, because you have time, but you don't have money. So, tune in next week for that. Anyway, Steve.
Yes, where are we? We have some information here. It was sent in by Seamus, and this is an article which is in the independent.co.uk, and it says thousands of teenage girls enduring debilitating illness after routine school cancer vaccination, that is the HPV injection. I think we've talked about that before, and I know I have a teenage daughter, and I know a lot of people have teenage daughters, and about a year ago my daughter was offered this HPV, the Gardasil injection in school, and we kind of said no. We gave her the information to look at. We didn't just kind of say yes, go ahead and get it, because this application form or this booklet says that you should. We first of all done the research, and we showed our daughter the research as well, and we kind of erred on the side of caution based on the information that we've seen. So we decided no, it wasn't the road to go down. But on the day for the vaccination, my daughter was the only girl, not only in her class but in her year, actually not only in her year but in the whole school, that didn't get the injection. Now we did hear subsequently after that some of the girls were quite sick, some kind of mildly, and some a little more, had to take a couple of days off. But from what we've seen on a worldwide scale, this Gardasil it's not good. It has left some people in wheelchairs, it has left some people dead. So I think it's really not the way to go. And you know, we in the alternative media have been speaking about this for a long time, saying about, you know, the effects that it has on these young children, these young bodies. And it's about time that mainstream is actually kind of catching up with what we're doing, which seems to be happening more regular these days, where we're kind of talking about an issue, and eventually mainstream will actually catch up. Maybe, I don't know, maybe they're not allowed to report on it, but I mean, it's nice to see that this the Independent in the UK is actually reporting this. So let's just hope that, you know, it will kind of go viral and maybe save some lives.
Cool. Okay, you're going to tell us.
Cool. Is that all you have to say? Cool. You could have said, yes, I agree. That's, you know, it's a very important issue.
Yes, I concur.
See, you don't have a daughter, so you don't care.
Yes, I concur. Of course I care. Are you joking?
Yes, he does. He really does. Anyway, Mick.com, or Mike. What would you call it, Mick? Mike?
Well, Mike.com, I'd say Mike.com.
Okay, Mike.com. Seeing there's a new show on CBS that gives struggling families $101,000, but there's a little sick twist to it. CBS aired the first episode of their new series, The Briefcase. The show follows the struggling American families who are suddenly given €101,000 and a choice. They can either keep the money or give some or all of it to another needy family. The entire plot appears to be inspired by a 1986 Twilight Zone episode entitled Button. I haven't seen it myself, but I will be looking at it soon. To further increase the awkward tension, families are given information about the other needy strangers they could be helping and are forced to consider whose lives are more worthy of assistance. One of the viewers commented, "Dear CBS, the reality show The Briefcase, manipulating people in debt, was obviously created by a sociopath. It's cruel and sickening." And I think I would tend to agree with that. I haven't seen it myself, but I think we should all maybe have a look if we can. You probably get it on YouTube anyway. But I mean, Jesus Christ, there's enough people struggling. So they're now doing reality TV shows where they're actually, instead of going to the rich and famous, or the rich and famous wannabes and following them, they're actually following struggling people and giving them a choice. Okay, you can keep the money or you can help someone else. and we're going to document the whole thing. So I mean, it's really laughing in the face of austerity. It's disgusting. I'm sorry, I would agree with you there.
Yeah, no.
And thanks for sending that information into us, Seamus.
Yeah, no, it's pretty bad. Now, the one thing on the last thing on the list, as I say, the Pain Genie seminar is going ahead on the 21st of June at 1 p.m. in the Ardboyne Hotel in Navan, and this is a free seminar. And just to, say to people that we don't sell the Pain Genie, it's not on OYM, we're not selling it. All we want people to do is come along, because it's free, there's no charge. I mean, obviously, if you want to donate to help pay the cost, that would be appreciated, but it's a voluntary, not mandatory. And we just want people to see the Pain Genie and make your mind up for yourself. That's all, like me and Steve did.
That's it. It's a case of, look, we know there's a lot of skeptics out there. We're two bloody skeptics too. In fact, I think Alan said to me before we come on that someone commented on the fence that we're always sitting on, and it's gonna need some TLC, and it probably will, because we're always sitting on it. But look, we're skeptics as well. But we actually we hooked up with Richard. We tried it. We sucked it and see it. Suck it and see. Anyway, scrap, edit that out of the podcast. But no, we did, and I got benefit from it. My wife got benefit from it, and Alan has a full head of hair now and a beard. So I don't know what happened there. But no, if you're skeptic, come along, and if you're in pain, all the better. Come along on the day. Richard will give you a going over and see how you feel when you come out the other side. I say we're not selling snake oil. We're not selling anything. It's just that we both tried it, and we were amazed by the results, because we are two skeptics, and because of what we seen and what we felt, we just kind of felt other people need to know about this. And if we can put on a little seminar where people can come for free, happy days, and that's what we've done. Exactly.
And just to entice you down as well, we'll be giving out 3 OYM stickers, and there'll be a discount on the T-shirts. We have a few large and extra large OYM T-shirts left, and they'll be available for €10 each, special price on the day. Now, we have to be very careful of marketing, but apparently they are fantastic for your love life.
Yes.
And they do wonders for your figure, and apparently they might also stop World War III.
And they're so big they can cover your anus.
How's your week?
Yeah. No, look, I'm not gonna go wasting time here. My week's been fine. The only thing that really came up on the radar this week was my son was sick, and he was diagnosed with viral, don't say pneumonia, viral bronchitis. Now, I've heard of bronchitis, I've never heard of viral bronchitis, so obviously it does exist. And I was just thinking, I was talking to a lady in my place of employment there recently, and we were just shooting the breeze about illnesses that, you would have heard of, but you never knew anyone that had it, and within the past couple of months, I've already known 2 people that have come down with scarlet fever. Now, I thought scarlet fever was something that was one of these kind of old-fashioned diseases that was eradicated years ago. But now it seems to be making a comeback. And one of the people who got it was seemingly, well, she was a child, but there's supposed to be a scale of scarlet fever, like a 0 to 10. She was kind of down the lower end of the scale. And then another chap that I know, his daughter, she actually got it there, I think about 2 weeks ago, contracted it from someone in school, and I'm not sure exactly how far along the scale she is, but it's making a comeback. So I mean, I'm kind of suspicious as to these diseases that went away, especially when we heard years ago that polio was already on the way. I think it was polio, was it? No, I'm not sure, but there was a disease that was already on the way out when they start introducing vaccinations.
Yeah, and it came up again.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know, are these kind of planes that are going over now spreading the old chemtrails, are they carrying viruses? And we heard this last year that could be something that was on the cards, whereby they could be introducing viruses and spreading them through chemtrails. So I mean, is that what's happening now? I don't know, but it's definitely worth looking into, or worth considering anyway. So just think amongst yourselves there, if you know anyone who has a disease or an illness that that you haven't heard of before, something that's, especially if it's viral. Because that when I hear the word viral, I start looking up, and I don't mean throwing my eyes up. I'm looking up, going, what else is coming out of those planes? Anyway, there you go. There's my week. How's your week?
Just before we bring John on, just a couple of things. The Independent.ie It goes to show you the legal system is getting worried about the lay litigants and us standing up to the system. It says in the Independent.ie, which you know is Dennis O'Brien's newspaper, some debtors using freeman claims. Everything's freeman, isn't it? It's not the way you label it. Freeman that, yeah. What's wrong with being a free man? So if we're not a free man, then we're a slave man, are we?
Yep.
So anyway, some debtors using freeman claims to evade obligations, right? I mean, talk about hypocrisy in the criminals in the government. Borrowers relying on freeman of the land style theories of law pose a serious challenge to the legal system, according to one of the country's prominent commercial lawyers, Barrister Rossa Fanning. Now, according to Rossa Fanning, you know, like everything's freeman in the land. See, they don't like that we're learning the law and then using the law against them. That's really what it is, and they're throwing the toys out of the pram. That's all it is.
That's it. They don't like the fact that we're learning their system.
Yeah, exactly.
They used to have a monopoly on it, and now the ordinary folk are learning.
Exactly. And the other thing was, the IrishExaminer.com said that Taoiseach to signal sizable USC cuts in next budget. The Taoiseach is expected to outline significant cuts to the universal social charge in the next budget that will bring the marginal rate on middle income earners to below 50%. Now, my understanding of the universal social charge was that was only a temporary tax to come in just to help out with the austerity after 4 years that had to go. Now, I'm pretty sure we should be near the anniversary that universal social charge should go.
Look, you know as well as I do, anything like that they introduce, it never goes away.
Well,
ever.
When I read that, then my mind went back to actually the whole idea of them charging tax in the first place back in the early 1920s or 30s, where it was voluntary, and then they seen how much money was being made, and he said, sure, we'll keep it in and not say anything. But there was no law passed, so taxing your labour is not law. And they're doing the same thing with the universal social charge. You know, I mean, you give them a bit and they'll take a bite. You know what I mean? So that's really what's happening here. But, okay, we're going to bring John in. We're going to bring our guest in. Now, John is an expert in addiction. And we're going to be talking to John about addiction, especially in power, because you have these people who are in power, you know, Joan Bruton and Enda Kenny and, you know, the other parties in the Micheál Martin, the other parties in the wings wanting to get in. Everybody wants to be in power and control, and there's an aphrodisiac with that as well. I'm sure we'll go into that and talk to John about it. Good evening, John. How are you?
I'm well. Great to talk to you both.
Great stuff. John, thanks for coming back on, because we did an interview with you a few weeks ago and we were talking about everything and anything, I think, on that interview. But tonight we really want to kind of work on your area of expertise and what we want to look at, addiction. And basically, I mean, we'll talk about addiction in general, but definitely addiction in power, because what we're seeing is massive uprising with people right across the globe. And we know that the people in power are getting concerned, they're getting worried. I just read out an article there about, you probably just heard it there, about a senior prominent commercial lawyer said that, they're using freeman of the land. They don't like us learning their system. And again, it's this control. They obviously feel they'll lose an element of control. So give us a quick overview of you, and then we'll start getting into addiction.
Okay, yes, fair enough. Yes, I was listening to what you were saying before, and I agree. You know, anybody that has eyes to see and an openness to just step back from life and view it with an open mind and an open heart is very likely to see that this is something becoming, it's not just creeping in, it is fast and very accelerated dominance of certain numbers of people and keeping the rest of the world very much in a victim mentality. There's no question about that. It's beginning to become quite frightening. You're experiencing all of your own things over an island, which, generally speaking, I've got a bit of an idea of, just keeping an eye on the alternate media, because of course you don't always hear any of that in the mainstream media. But there's as much going on here in the UK, and always has been in the UK, that tiny little place in the middle of the world that thinks it's dominated the rest of it for all of the centuries that have gone before. So it's not a new thing, but it's certainly something that we're seeing so much more evidence of. I agree.
Sorry, John. Yeah, now tell us something about the whole addiction. Why are these people, why are these, like Andy Kenny and Cameron, why are they addicted to power? Why are they so kind of, they're just, because we know an election's coming up, because they're promising the world, and they'll just do anything to keep the power. Yeah.
And they are keeping the power, and it's very dismaying for us to just step back and to realize that we have allowed ourselves as human beings to expect very little from life, and to far too easily slot into what I'm describing as a victim mentality, a victim consciousness, where we render ourselves pretty well helpless and hopeless. And as long as there are enough people doing that, there'll always be those who will take full advantage of that. And across politics, we're seeing it most clearly, most evidently. There are those that you've mentioned in Ireland, and of course here it's the Conservative government at the moment. But to be honest, there's not much between any of the political parties. They all play the same game, as you, I'm sure, realize in your own country. So yeah, it's not good. It's something that maybe people are beginning to wake up to, but perhaps now feel still disempowered to make any change in, to do anything very different about. Because my own field is that one of addiction, and people think of addiction mainly being to alcohol or to drugs or to food or to what, or gambling perhaps. But when we look at addiction more broadly, like you're inviting me to speak about tonight, we can see ultimately that it's that one I've just mentioned. It's a power over powerlessness, isn't it? It's some people actually thinking, this is how it is, this is the way life is, this is what you're supposed to be doing, this is what you can't do, and the powerless thinking that it is beyond them, that they cannot actually change that, even though most of these political parties we don't know anything about. They do tell a lot of lies before they get into power. They promise the earth, as you've just said. Nothing ever does get to be completed. And, we're just left thinking, oh, well, this is how it is. We have to make the best of it. So human beings, we really are going to have to wake up big time, because people are dying. We're literally being starved of our own magnificence, our own worth, our own truth, our own, reason to be on this planet as majestic human beings, because we are, but we're being reduced to nothing. Okay, and what do you put that down to? I would put that down to a very clever, in terms of politics, a very, very clever manoeuvring, very deliberate manoeuvring of making sure that thing that is kind of basic to the human being, this thing of power and powerlessness, has been well and truly exploited. There are those, we touched on this last time I was speaking with you, when we were looking at things like NLP and all the different means by which those techniques and different approaches, we'll say, to life can be used, harnessed, to actually keep people very, very much at bay, keeping them very small. So there's a very manipulative behavior going on. It suits the few, and it's actually making the many very totally depleted, absolutely and utterly depleted. What I put it down to, a small number of people, very, very cleverly, very wisely, you might say, but very darkly, taking total advantage of the many. And unfortunately, the many, after some years now, have been so belittled and so kind of made to feel so small that they've lost any sight of how that can be changed and overturned. But it's been there in every one of our systems. The political one is there. The religious one is the other huge one, in which it's been, very evident, really, keeping people very small in comparison to the magnificence that I'm talking about, that each human being really is. It's there in our education systems. It runs right across the board. It's very insidious. It's very manipulative. And we just have to hope to God that people are beginning to realize, if we don't act quickly and definitely and differently, this existence that we call life is going to be pretty short-lived. I think so. And what seems to be a red flag to me is that sociopaths seem to be drawn to this kind of business politics. And if you look at the people in power, you could actually say that, because
And it's amazing when you approach these people, and I have to say sociopaths, because there's no empathy there at all. And when you approach them and you say to them, look, can you not see what you're doing? They just can't see it. I mean, I read that article out about this commercial lawyer who says about, the freeman of the land style theories of law pose a serious challenge to the legal system. They can't see what they're doing. Do you know what I mean? They just can't see.
Oh, no, totally. I'm with you on that one, because for long enough, I would meet different people just like the ones that you described, to almost psychopathic, certainly sociopathic in many ways, totally dominating, speaking without a scrap of empathy about another, and thinking, how do you do that? What would make a person feel that way, do that way? But you're quite right. You know what? They're doing it because they simply do not have the emotional feeling that you are clearly, expressing, and you're dismay about, that I would be absolutely horrified about. It's just not there. If we look at the British Prime Minister and you hear him speak, or any of his cabinet members, they can be speaking in such a ruthless, such a cutthroat kind of way. You'd have to think, for God's sake, do they have any scrap of feeling, any scrap of identification with another human being? Certainly there is no compassion in it at all. So it's as if they have, and indeed they have been, living almost on a different planet. They've had an entirely different background. They haven't had to experience any of the things that the ordinary, everyday person has. And so it is totally remote from them. Now, how on earth these people are wielding positions of power, how on earth they are being, they're pretending they're being voted in by people. Nobody votes for those kinds of people. So the system is peculiar in that it's actually been hijacked by a few, and as a result, the few are actually wielding that power that has not a scrap of empathy about it. I agree.
Yeah. And obviously the ego has a lot to play in this, I would assume, because I know in my own personal experience working in the corporate world, I've said this before, where a person might have a job as a supervisor, and then all of a sudden, after, a couple of years, they get promoted, they get a bigger salary, and then they get promoted again, have a bigger salary, and all of a sudden then their attitude starts changing, and that confidence goes into arrogance, and they start building a little empire. And with obviously that's what I've seen what happens. I assume maybe that's the same way with this. It's a gradual thing where maybe they join a government party and then they get promoted in the party and they get moved up the ladder bit by bit. And as this goes on, they hunger for more, because they see the benefits at the top. They're seeing the kind of fruit hanging from the tree, and they're going, I want to get up there. I want to be one of them boys, and they'll do anything they want.
I'm sure they promised the earth, and in many respects they probably, experienced enough of that's promised in terms of material wealth, and that's where a dominance and a controlling and a manipulation of those very well selected individuals, and as you say, it's totally egoic. It's totally the ego, which goes crazy in a sense for that need for power, need for that place of prominence and importance over another, so much so that any empathy is lost. There's not, it just goes out of the window entirely. But there are also those who maybe never had it in the first place, literally never had it, almost by a bloodline, I believe. We're simply introduced to a way of living that was so entirely remote from the feelings of another that they would be the prime candidates for any of those positions. And as I say, you see them right across the board. You see them in education, you see them in politics, you see them in religious spheres. They're there wherever there is a position of authority. And I was mentioning to you last time, I have just written a book over this last year. It's called Addiction Unplugged, How to Be Free. But the very way I open that book, the very first sentence of it, Alan and Steve, is to recognize that power and powerlessness that goes on. And I simply say we can all hand over our lives to a someone or to a something, but as soon as we do this, we give to that someone or to that something a power and an authority over us which diminishes our individuality, and it depletes us of our energy. Now, the reason I put that in right at the beginning of the book is because I recognize that enough of my life was given over to an authority, was given over to the authority of the Catholic Church, because I was a Catholic priest for a number of years. And while I went into that with terrific empathy, with great compassion, with a huge amount of love for another human being, with every intention of living a very spiritual life and encouraging it in others, I realized that my life over the period of time became more and more diminished because it was the authority that was making sure that no matter what great intention I had, it was going to be squashed, squeezed, absolutely kept tiny in comparison to how huge that outpouring from me and from others, in the church could have been. But we're kept small. We're kept ridiculously small.
Yeah.
So when I moved into the field of addiction, well, wow, of course, there they were in their hundreds and thousands, people who from their very outset had also been kept very small. Nobody takes to drinking heavily or using drugs heavily if they haven't had cause to do so. It's not just I think I'll do this tonight just for the fun of it, or I like just getting wasted just for the fun of it. When it gets really serious with the person, it has always got the indication that that individual from an early stage in life has always felt small, has been hurt, has been kept diminished, has been kept with a reduction of energy about their very right or place in life. They've tried desperately hard to overcome it, but actually they haven't been able to manage it. It's too big for them. So they've inevitably turned to what I call self-soothing mechanisms. Alcohol's the obvious one, where you just make yourself feel that bit better, where it just seems a little bit more manageable, just takes the edge off life. But in actual fact, what you're doing is hurting like hell inside. And, that is so evident now right across the board, where we see power being wielded over powerlessness, and we see empowered people being disempowering others, and where hurt is completely and utterly ignored. Even in the addiction field, in treatment fields, it's all still about, when are you going to get your act together? When are you going to get over this? As though somebody's done something wrong. There's nothing wrong with a person who's in addiction, but there's deep hurt going on that's never, ever been addressed, and isn't even, when they're going through their treatment processes. That's why I feel so vehement about it, really knowing that there must be another way, and the other way has got to be about love, empathy, forgiveness, compassion, and a deeper understanding for people's real needs.
Okay, now, obviously, to tie into this, people who are suffering from low self-esteem, insecurity, obviously might feel like a crutch would be alcohol or drugs or whatever the addiction is. And it could be another human being, for all you know. Relationships can be addictive.
That's true.
Now, have you found there has to be some kind of, number one, a common denominator that some people will be pulled into that and other people won't be, and obviously when people get away from it, there must be another common denominator that switches them on to say, well, I'm not going to do this anymore. Have you seen the both in and out scenarios? Is there a common denominator for that?
Do you mean of those who are actually able to just pull out from the real hurt that they are actually really incurring to themselves through addictive behaviour and are able to surpass it? Do you mean?
Well, there are people out there that could be, have low self-esteem or lack of confidence, and they might find the confidence by alcohol, say for example, right? But there's other people who also are the same, but they won't be drawn to anything that's addictive. So what's the difference between the two of them?
That's right. So the real common denominator here, I would say, to be honest, really, is that, not all addicts are rooted in trauma or abuse, right? It's not that that's necessarily been their starting place in life. But I do believe that they can all, be traced to painful experiences that's gone on in the past. Now, that painful experience, if unaddressed, is going to become a deep hurt. It's always going to be there at the center of addictive behaviors. But there are those who are able to address that hurt. By addressing it, I mean not think themselves so wrong, not believe for a second that they've got things so totally wrong, but begin to discover enough acceptance about themselves, bring themselves back to a state of worthiness, feeling worthy, feeling deserving, taking up a more rightful space in life, where they don't have to be constantly proving themselves, winning people over, gaining people's admiration, just to allow themselves to be themselves. And there are those people who will manage it more easily than others. There are others who absolutely obstinately remain in it because there's more reward for them to do that, because they remain victims. They remain people who think, oh, as long as I'm doing this, I'll get people to actually take more notice of me just because, I'm helpless. So there are people, unfortunately, who prefer their helplessness. It's their own form of manipulation, oddly enough.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Bob Beck said this. When Bob Beck made the machine to cure cancer, he got this engineer who was diagnosed with cancer. And basically the engineer had to leave his work, and he was at home, and his daughters and his wife was taking care of him and everything else. Are you okay, Dad? Do you need anything else and all that? So Bob Beck said to him, look, come and try this machine and see how you get on. So to cut a long story short, he went in, did a few treatments with the machine, his cancer disappeared. And then he realised at his age, which he was in his middle 50s, he had to go out and compete with all these young engineers after being at home for a good few years. So he went out and committed suicide. And Bob Beck said, don't assume that everybody wants to be healed. Some people like the attention so much they prefer to have the disease because they're getting the attention. You there, John?
Yes. There's an area of understanding, or we'll call it, that are known as control dramas, and this might be helpful to get at the core of what we're discussing tonight. When people are coming to this world, depending on the circumstances, the environment, the immediate family environment that we're born into, there's this felt need that we have to vie for, compete for energy. Now, by that I mean, if we have very dominant parents or very dominant older brother or sister, and we come into the world, then we're going to have to think, well, how do I actually even get to be noticed here? How do I actually, don't just be made to feel invisible? So if we have an interrogator or an intimidator parent, well, we're very unlikely to become an interrogator or intimidator ourselves. We're far more likely to become either a victim or go aloof, okay? In other words, let the more dominant person totally rule the roost, know that, okay, they're the authority over us, and as long as I actually play the victim, I'll have attention enough, but, that's my role. And we assume a role about ourselves. Now, for an interrogator to interrogate, well, they have to find a victim or a person who's aloof to try to do that, because they're not going to be able to interrogate another interrogator. And an intimidator isn't going to be able to do that. So in other words, in order to play the game of being an intimidator, you have to have somebody that can be intimidated. And so we do this very unwittingly. We fall into roles. They're called control dramas because that's exactly what they're about. They're about a drama that we actually begin to enact. It's the ego, and it's certainly, it's before we know it, it's who we think we are. And we try living that belief out about ourselves in the hope that whichever one we select will just be able to get enough attention or enough energy to help us get by. Now, obviously, the aggressor is going to be either the intimidator or the interrogator. And the intimidator and interrogator, as again we've touched on tonight, are going to be found in all of those places, in education systems, bullying teachers, in politics, bullies who are there to call it, going into telling everybody there should be austerity measures and living an absolutely fantastic life themselves. They're going to be there in religious circles, lording it over, but using maybe the scriptures as the as the baton to do that, say it comes from Christ, when in actual fact it's nothing like the Christian message. So, it's there, it's in the fabric of society. And as we're born into the world, we fall in line with whichever one is the most predominant parental persona. Now, if there are parents of ours who are victims and are aloof, then, we're either going to do much the same and become a whole family full of victims, or actually we're going to think, well, hang on a minute, maybe if I'm going to get the best from my father here, I'm going to be a bit of an intimidator. I'm going to be the bully. And that's basically how all of our little circuits, all of our little clusters of life and living are operating. But we see them magnified in some of these authorities that we're talking about tonight.
Okay, we have a couple of questions for you, John. I'll pass you over to Steve.
Yeah,
John, we have a question come in from Chris there earlier. And Chris is just wondering, does John think there is a dark force that feeds on the pain of normal people? I think that he actually sent that question in when we were talking about the politicians and, being sociopaths and that sort of thing.
Well, anything that feeds on other people, and especially if it's going to be detrimental, you could call a dark force. Now, by a dark force, we can mean any number of things, but it's certainly going to be one that is missing the beauty of life. It's certainly going to be missing the whole truth that, in fact, there's no need to be doing that. We don't need to be competing or vying for energy at all. We can actually transcend those things. So even if we're born into a family, like I've just been talking about there, where we immediately assume a role and play it out in everything in life, it's not that there's one role any better than another. Actually, as human beings, we're all really meant to transcend them, go beyond them, because we're so much more than any of those things. We're not just a victim. We're not just a person that goes aloof. We're not just an interrogator of others. We're not, as a human being, an intimidator. So there will be people who will assume those roles in their smallness and assume a strength and a grandeur about them. But we've really got to call the bluff on that. We really must, because there's no darkness over the greatness that we are that ultimately can have any power over us. But certainly, because we've been really dumbed down and being made to feel so small, it can certainly seem like that. Again, just falling back to the world in which I've been working in for a number of years, even in addictive treatment centers and recovery programs, it can attract counselors, psychologists, therapists who are also bullies, who are also intimidators, who are also like to wield that dark power over us. Wherever there is the possibility that strength or energy can be gained by keeping another one small, there's going to be that arising. But it's not the truth of who we are. We're all capable of so much more. And we really got big time to be waking up from this and moving on from it. It used to be the way of the world. It was the whole Thatcherite thing in England that big time brought this in the 80s, and people are still suffering the consequences of it. And I can see enough of it going on there in Ireland too. But as human beings, we are so much more than that, and we're having to allow any of these things to ultimately win us over.
Excellent. Dave on the chat room he just made a comment a couple of moments ago, and it goes something like this. He said, do people smoke because they are missing something in life? And he says, no, they smoke because they are biochemically addicted to a chemical. And I would probably agree with that. But I would also agree that in order for, again, I could be wrong, but for someone to become biochemically addicted to a chemical, they must first have an addictive personality. Or am I off the mark there?
Well, a lot of people talk about addictive personality. I don't believe that we need to use a term like that. Let's just put it this way. There are people who are going to have, like I was saying before, real hurts in their life. Maybe that they're not even fully aware of. That they've never, in other words, been able to make sense of. But they have been hurt. And they just feel constantly that hurt is something that's kept them small. Now, if that is the case, then they will look to different measures. And smoking might be just one of those things that will make them feel a little less hurt, a little less incomplete. Think about the action of smoking, if you wish, and I have nothing against anybody smoking. Is do what they want and drink whatever a person wants. I'm not kind of hell bent on wanting to convince anybody of doing anything other than that which they so choose. But if a person is really ready and looking for why they might feel so stuck on something that they would rather do without, and if smoking is one of those things, they do kind of need to look at, well, why would I be taking in an intake into my lungs on an everyday basis, something that clearly is going to be detrimental to me? What would make me believe that anything could be worth that? There must be, at the heart of that, a sense of worthlessness. There must be. Well, and that's something that's really important to look at.
But that's very logical to look at that when you're not there. I mean, I'm an ex-smoker, as Steve is, from years ago. And I know for me, it was got to do with, I was under stress. I was under a lot of stress. And I just felt that blowing out of the smoke was my visual way of releasing that stress.
Yeah, I can understand that. Yeah, I really do. And so all of those like addictive patterns of behavior will stay, like the whole cigarette smoking. You go, you choose your preferred brand, you maybe go to your preferred shop to buy it, it passes out over the counter, there's the whole thing of opening up the cellophane, isn't it? Then the packet, and then the smell of it, then the tapping of the cigarette. You either put it behind your ear, or you put it in your pocket, or you know, everybody has their own, it's a ritual, isn't it?
John, will you stop, will you?
I'm just going.
I'm remembering what it was like.
We're just going to light up now in a minute.
It's part of the ritual, isn't it? But it's also it's part of the pleasure. Now, I'm not saying that it's not a pleasurable experience. Nobody does a thing that doesn't have a pleasurable experience. But you would need to think, well, why a choice of a pleasure that clearly has something as detrimental about it to what's it overcoming? What is that that's more important than what it's supposed to be quelling or calming?
Well, that's again
that stress. You know, it's the stress. It's not the cigarette smoking. Cigarette smoking is just the extra, isn't it? It's the thing, but it's the stress then, is it? And that's the deep hurt that I'm talking about. That we need to find ways of self-soothing.
See, the logical approach. I mean, I totally agree with you. Why would you take something that's going to have a detrimental effect to your health? But at that time, you're not thinking that. You're thinking that your short-term goal is, I'm stressed, I need to. You know, and that's just the way it's perceived. And maybe that's what addicts see. And maybe whether it's drugs or drink or whatever, they don't see the long-term goal. They just see the short-term resolution or the solution to their problem. And over time, every time they look at that solution, it just gathers momentum where they get to a stage where they're addicted to it.
Yes, absolutely. And this is where the whole thing of this power thing comes in. Because if you hear any government talking about treatment, recovery programs, for a long time in Ireland, I worked as part of it, you know, local drug task forces and the likes. They all sounded like great things, but still at the heart of them, there was a belief that the addict was doing something wrong, you know, and that they had to correct that and do something more right. And then there would be a happier city of Dublin or a happier country of Ireland or whatever. But it's not that anybody's doing anything wrong. This is being the very misleading thing. And this is where it suited governments perfectly well to keep it this way, where, you know, you keep the masses doing something like excessing with alcohol or excessing with drugs or smoking, you know, as much as they want to smoke. But at the same time, still not addressing, and certainly not then enabling the individual to address, but why am I having to do this? What smallness is making me hurt so much that I'm having to find a way that of course feels totally pleasurable to me and does relieve the stress short term, but we need to look beyond that. It's got to be a bigger picture look at things. Governments are perfectly happy for us to have all of these things ongoing. Ireland's a perfect example of being totally hypocritical about drug taking, for example, when you know for sure you're a country of very heavy drinkers over lots of centuries. So but it's become part and parcel of the fabric, and never ever really allowed to look at it. It brings in huge revenue for the country. Why would governments want to change such a thing? But at the same time, as you know, it's being used by people en masse to cover deep hurts, abuse being huge, of course, in places like Ireland. And, any number of the people who've been abused will, of course, be alcoholic or drug taking. They'll have found the ways to make something dire feel tiniest bit more acceptable about themselves. So there's no question why a person would do those things. It's obvious. But the question I keep asking is, why, by now, are we not collectively realizing we must have better ways than this, more compassionate ways, more empathetic ways, more loving ways, and more conscious ways of actually moving beyond that? And it's by addressing the real hurts that lie at the heart of most human beings.
Yeah, no, we do.
Which are being totally taken for granted and used, and we're kept very powerless as a result.
Yeah, well, that's something that we're going to get you to tell us about, because I know you have a book all about it, and we've been told that it's very, very interesting. We've reached that time, John. Unfortunately, we have to let you go, but I'm going to pass you over to Steve, and Steve's going to get all your details. Thanks again for coming on. Over to you, Steve.
Very welcome, guys.
Yeah, John, good information. Hopefully we'll be able to do it again at a later date, and get some more information out there. It has a lot of chat going on both of the chat rooms in relation to the subject matter. So I think everyone has an opinion, and it's good that everyone can learn something.
Absolutely.
I have a link here, John, for the book, which I'm going to post on the chat room. But can you throw us out the website there as well, and we'll get that up too?
Yep, the book is called Addiction Unplugged: How to Be Free. You can get it, through Amazon or any of those. Any bookstore will actually order it in for you now. Addiction Unplugged: How to Be Free. It's the first book of its kind to be written from the perspective of conscious awareness, so an entirely different approach. It's none of your traditional AA, NA type approaches. It's a very, very common sense approach for those in addiction and for those affected by their loved ones in addiction. Very common sense, very practical. The website, for those who want to maybe reach me direct, and I'd be delighted to hear from anybody who genuinely wants assistance with any of the matters that we've addressed tonight, is www.bealive.com. So I'll say it again, bealive.com. And my name is John Flaherty. I'd be delighted to hear from you.
Brilliant stuff. That's brilliant, John. All right, John, just stay with us there for a minute. We're going to go off to a musical break, and we'll be back after this with Anthony Hughes.
This is Open Your Mind Radio on OYMradio.com, UnitedWeStrike.com, and PeoplesInternetRadio.com.
And we're back, and that was Addicted to Love. We thought that was an appropriate song for what we were talking about earlier on. Right, our next guest on is a chap called Anthony Hughes. Now, we found out about Anthony from Clive de Carle and Richard Cumbers. Richard has been on the show. We've been talking to Richard about the Pain Genie, and we know Anthony uses the Pain Genie in his clinic. Now, Anthony is based in Stillorgan, and he's an alternative therapist. I believe, and I'm sure we'll confirm this with Anthony, that he doesn't use pharmaceutical drugs. It's all natural. So we wanted to get Anthony on to talk to us, tell us about what he does in his clinic, and also the fact his experience working with the Pain Genie as well. So without further ado, we'll bring Anthony in. Good evening, Anthony. How are you?
Good evening, Alan. Good evening, Steve.
Good evening, Anthony.
Good stuff. Anthony, now we've heard about you from Clive de Carle. We've heard great things from Clive and Richard about yourself, about being in Stillorgan. And the one thing that they told us about was that if people wanted to find out what they were lacking in their body or the issues that they had, they could take a visit down to you, and you could do a consultation with them for probably about an hour, hour and a half, and you'd be able to tell them what the body needs, because Clive told us about the issues that he had with the rheumatoid arthritis, and they told him 26 years ago that it's terminal and there's nothing you can do about it, and he went off and did the research and everything else. So do you want to, before we get into asking questions and stuff like that, do you want to tell us about your clinic and what you do?
Yes. Well, you said there that I can determine what somebody needs in their bodies. Yes, I can do that, all right. But what's more important these days is that a lot of us have stuff that is excess to what we should be having. In other words, pollution and poisons. And people don't realize, they find it very hard to understand that there's an awful lot of pollution out there, and they don't realize that they're being affected by it. These poisons build up in time, and people don't normally have symptoms initially, but then with the accumulation, things begin to go wrong. And then, of course, it's diagnosed as arthritis or a skin problem or heart problems or whatever. And that's what the diagnosis is. But really the fundamental issue is pollution and poisoning.
Okay. And
so what I do, I'll tell you what I do.
Yeah, okay.
I do testing on people by biofeedback techniques.
Okay.
Usually using electrodermal skin testing, where I test the acupuncture points on the hands and the feet, which are connected with the organ systems. And the resistance of those points indicates to me which organs are functioning okay, which ones are not. And from there, I use a technique called medication testing, which means that you can actually use remedies in the testing system to test what is the remedy for the problem. And before that, use preparations to test for the cause of the problem, whether it's a poison, whether there's an allergy involved, whether there's an infection involved. So that's the way I do this. And my primary concern is to identify why people are sick, what is causing it, not that they have arthritis or gastritis or any itis, because these are the symptoms of trouble,
okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Medicine these days is geared towards diagnosing a disease and then identifying a drug to treat it. But the actual identification of why the problem is there is glossed over. It's not done. And it's not the fault of the doctors. The problem is with drug companies. It's big business. They control every aspect of medicine these days. And just to point out that, yes, I'm not a doctor. I'm trained in natural medicine and Chinese medicine. So I cannot and will not use drugs. I cannot prescribe drugs.
Right, okay. Now, when it comes to somebody, say let's take example stress. Stress is a very contributing factor to a lot of ailments and health issues that people experience. So if they come into you and they have an ailment, will you diagnose, look at the emotional side as well? Because obviously the stress caused the physical effect of what they have. Would you be looking at that side as well?
Yes, certainly. Now, I know that from 27 years of experience in clinical practice that too many people are told that their problem is coming from stress. And that may be a part of it, but stress alone generally would not cause a particular condition. Otherwise, everybody who has stress will have the same problem, right? We're all different, and the stress can minimize or lessen the body's ability to deal with any other problem. So, obviously, there can be serious stress, and that alone is causing major trouble, and you can deal with that. But often there are many, many other factors that are going on, and that must be dealt with first, because you don't deal with the physiological problems, and you manage to control the stress, well, that will help. But still, the actual physical disease itself will cause stress.
Okay.
So it's not a matter of dealing with stress alone. You have to deal with the emotional, the physiological, the environmental, and even spiritual factors in any illness.
Okay, and does that, and your consultation when people go to you, takes all them factors in to give you a good overview of what could be the problem, what could be causing it?
Yes. And sometimes for complicated cases, there may be layers of problems. In other words, somebody may be in their 50s, 60s, or 70s, having suffered exposure to toxins and pollutions and problems over their lifetimes. Now, there's a general principle in natural medicine, and that is that a symptom of an illness is the body's mechanism or attempt to deal with that illness. And unfortunately, the approach of conventional medicine is to block the symptoms with drugs. That means the cause is not addressed, and furthermore, the actual pathological process is driven deeper in the system, and then emerges later on as something more serious. So people come to me later on in life. Often there are layers of blocked and suppressed problems. It's like putting a dam on the river.
Yeah.
I often tell my patients, you're like the Colorado Dam. There's so much stuff over the years that's locked in there that here's a few things that are wrong, but when this is cleared up, there may be other things hidden deep in the system. Because this testing really depends on the body's reaction to these problems. And this is how I work. The body will indicate what's causing the trouble. Our bodies are amazing systems. Our bodies literally know at some level what's wrong with us. And by tapping into the body's reactions by these techniques, you can tell what it is. But as I say, often there are deeper problems that are hidden deep in the tissues, and that won't come up until later.
Okay, so how many people, so if somebody wants to come to you and to get a consultation, how many, I mean, I know it's finger in the air because it depends on the actual ailment or the issue they have, but how many treatments would you normally say on average a person would need? Or do you just give them the consultation, tell them the information they need and the things they need to do, and then it's up to them to go off and do it? How does it work?
Yes. Of course, I get some people who have quite simple problems and they can be corrected quite easily. Others have very complicated case histories and serious complicated problems. So, really, I tell people to come back to me in about 2 or 3 months. Identify what's wrong, where it's coming from, and what remedies are needed. Those remedies include herbs, specialized nutrition, homeopathy, essential oils, and anything else I think is needed. And I refer them to other people I think is necessary. So I say come back in 2 or 3 months. If they have a serious problem, I say come back in 6 weeks or 2 months. And I check again. I see, have those problems been cleared up? Are they gone? Do they feel better? And often one test and one follow-up will do. But sometimes on the follow-up I find there's other issues coming up. And indeed, older symptoms begin to show up. Because the older suppressed stuff that I had years ago is now coming to the fore.
Yeah.
And this means the body is going back through the process and is going through a healing situation. So each case is different. Some people come to me maybe 2 or 3 times. Others come on a regular basis every year because they want to maintain their health. And this is what this kind of medicine is about.
Okay.
I'm interested in identifying what's wrong with people and what they need to do to maintain their health. And before any disease develops, the body can indicate through this testing what is causing the trouble. There may not be any symptoms, but the organs like liver and kidney and spleen and so on do show up inflammation and problems even before there are physical symptoms. This is the great benefit and use of this kind of approach. It's not a matter of waiting till you're sick to fix it. This is a matter of prevention.
Yeah.
This is true prevention, true investigation.
But prevention a lot of the time is a lot cheaper than the actual treatment, I think, based on experience. But tell us something, with the cases that you've seen over the last few years, you talked about how dangerous the environment is and the chemicals that we have and the chemicals in our food and the environment. And we are familiar here at OYM regarding the wireless technology and all that kind of stuff, plus all the MSG and the aspartame and all that kind of stuff. If I said to you, what would be the top 3 cases that you're seeing on a regular basis come into you, what would they be?
The top 3 types of illness?
Yeah.
Digestive, skin, I would think, and musculoskeletal.
Okay.
Those 3. There are many, many others. I get people with all kinds of ailments.
Yeah.
But I do look at everything.
Yes.
Because fundamentally, most problems are caused by poisons.
Yeah. Poisons in their food and in the environment.
In the clothes, in the air, in the water, in the soil. Yes. Now,
I will say, Tony, you've just said poisons in the clothes. Now, this is something new to me and Steve. Well, new to me. We've heard about this in the last couple of weeks, and it was Richard that told us about this. Now, we are all familiar about the geoengineering and the chemicals in our water, the chemicals in our food. But now Richard was telling us about chemicals in our clothes. Do you want to expand on that a little bit, and just for people who weren't aware of this?
Yes, certainly. Our clothing is made, a lot of it, from synthetic materials. Now, there is a material called elastane. It's called spandex in the United States. And around the year 2007, there was a new patent brought out for the polymerization process, right, making the actual synthetic material. And it started using different chemicals, like ethylene diamine and propylene diamine. Now, I began to find that people were showing up problems with lack of minerals, trace minerals. And these minerals have got hundreds of functions in the body. They're very, very important. And after a while of investigation of this, and with people having pains and aches around areas where they had this elastane next to their skin, I realized that it was the chemical in the elastane that was causing the problem. And from observations of things like, a patient told me that after some person in the household dried her trousers at the wrong temperature, too high a temperature, she put them on, she immediately felt that something was wrong. She'd worn them many times, they were dried at the normal temperature. Somebody put them at the high temperature, and I thought, oh, this is it. It's the heat. Must be causing the accelerated degradation of the polymer, to release these amine compounds, which behave as chelating compounds. That means they latch on to the trace minerals, make them unavailable. They're still there. So if you get a test done in the laboratory, they'll still find them there. But the point is, they don't function, they don't work. So they latch on to manganese and zinc and iodine and iron, chromium, and so on. And these, as I say, have hundreds of functions, especially zinc. And manganese has but a dozen very important functions. And so this is what causes the trouble.
Yeah. And, I mean, this is new to us, we heard. Why do you think we have all these poisons in our environment, in our clothes and food? What's behind it, do you think?
Well, if I stick with the case of the clothing, this is trying to develop new materials for new clothes. And the ladies, I have to say, like to have their trousers and other garments that are close-fitting. And even sports people, they like to have close-fitting garments when they're racing, when they're cycling.
Yeah.
So it's market-oriented, and they don't care about the effects of these things. They don't care if they're putting chemicals into our environment. That's not what it's all about. It's about selling stuff. Yeah, exactly. That's just about that one kind of problem. There are many other problems, and the same thing applies. They don't care. The companies who make the agrochemicals, for instance, they're making tons and tons of terribly toxic stuff. I want to make a very important point here. A bad chemical being used, and that's increasing at a very high rate, is herbicide, like Roundup.
Yeah.
Now, people will talk about glyphosate, and they'll measure glyphosate, and they say that glyphosate is okay, it's within limits. But a big trick that's been used for a long time is that the manufacturers ignore the combination effect of these products. The herbicides, for instance, have got combinations of poisons, and glyphosate is just one ingredient. And they talk all the time about glyphosate, and they try and claim that it's safe, and they try and claim that it only poisons plants, metabolic processes. But they ignore other chemicals that are there, some of which they will not tell us what they are, and some of which have been shown to be hundreds of times more toxic than the glyphosate. So you see, you're snookered, because people just focus on this glyphosate.
Yeah.
And the testing shows, it's very low, or it's well within acceptable limits. But the combination of that, plus other serious chemicals, plus the detergents that are used, that makes it a far different case. Now, I'm glad to see that in recent years, that despite the huge increase in the use of this stuff, countries are beginning to ban it. And not too soon, I can tell you, because I see nearly all my patients are affected by the herbicides in their food and in the water.
Yeah, well, we're familiar with the chemicals, all the likes of fluoride being a neurotoxin and the other chemicals in our food, all right.
Yes. Okay.
Just talking about clothes, we weren't familiar with that. And the other thing, when you're talking about the mixing of chemicals, when people are using, say, deodorant under their arm, and then you might put some aftershave or they might put some perfume on, it's that mix of chemicals as well that might have an effect on them, which are not tested. I mean, that's where you're getting your combination of chemicals that have not been tested, and to see whether they work with each other. They could be harmful to the human skin or to your body.
If the additive effects are not tested, that's the point I'm making.
Yeah.
They will look at individual ingredients and say, oh, this is okay, this is safe, or this is within safe limits, but the actual combination effect is ignored. This has been the case for a long time, and this is business-oriented practice. Unfortunately, the likes of some chemicals in the Roundup and other herbicides, it's very, very expensive to test them. I was quoted thousands of pounds for getting a test done. So this is one of the things that is holding people back, the actual identification of these things.
Yeah, no, it's getting to the stage now that nearly, no matter what you do, whether it's the geoengineering, it's the water, it's the food, now it's the clothes. It just seems, you would think they're trying to kill us, Steve, wouldn't you?
It kind of looks that way. They're not trying to kill us, they're trying to harm us in some way, shape or form.
Geoengineering, I presume you're talking about the spraying of the skies.
Yes.
Yes, I believe this is going on. It's very bad in the USA. Certainly I've seen it here, and I've seen people suffering. In fact, a colleague of mine, a doctor in Belfast, he was talking to me one time and he said, Tony, what's this of the barium? He said, why am I seeing so much barium raised in people's urine? Because he does this testing for these elements in the urine and for minerals and poisons in the urine. And he was finding this barium. This barium comes from the chemtrail spraying. Okay?
Yeah.
I said, it's from the chemtrails. It's the spraying in the skies. Now, he didn't know about it, and he found this barium coming up. So he wasn't biased in any way. He just came across it.
Yeah. Well, this is it. They're spraying, there's barium, strontium, and aluminium. And they're also threatening to put actually vaccines in the mix as well, just to make sure that we're vaccinated as well, unknowingly. And people are suffering from certain illnesses. I'm trying to think of the main cause of the people. It's not fibromyalgia. It's another symptom which they suffer from, and they're seeing strands in their body. They leave these little white strands on the skin.
This is the mysterious problem where these plastic-like strands are appearing in people's skin.
Yeah.
It is a mystery. There are various theories. I don't know what it is. Some people say that it's a nanobots or nanorobotic particles forming together in the skin. I saw evidence that it was, in fact, a modification of an enzyme that produces something in the body that is more akin to what is produced in plants. In other words, it's some genetically engineered problem where we have these enzymes making stuff in our bodies that shouldn't be there, that belongs more in plants.
Yeah, it's. Okay. I think it's. Well, I have it down here. Morgellons, which is a kind of a fungus, polymer fibers, as well. Yeah.
It's a mystery. There's no clear answer. Lots of theories about it. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, it's a bit of a concern because more and more people are actually talking about it, and they're saying that they're getting side effects and suffering from it. We do have questions come in, Tony, that we're going to pass you off to Steve, and we'll start the questions. Steve?
Yeah, just in relation to, we were talking about the chemicals in the clothes. A comment just came up there on People's Internet Radio on the chat room there from John. John says linen was prescribed to the ancient Israelites through the Mosaic law to fend off skin irritations. Linen underwear especially. So, and someone else actually mentioned that as well, that if you are going to be wearing clothes, if you're concerned about what may be in them, that clothes made from hemp or cotton would be preferable. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, Anthony.
Yeah, yes, hemp, cotton, jute maybe, but certainly you can also get socks made from bamboo fibres. Now, I just want to warn people, there's a lot of trickery out there. You see garments that are labelled as being cotton, 100% cotton, but that is ignoring the elastic band.
Yeah.
And also ignoring the elastic around the legs. They can be elastane rubber. By the way, I must say that not all elastanes are a problem. It's the stuff, I think, that's been made in recent times, since 2007. But I think there's still some plants using the older process. So some elastane is okay and some is not. Now, I teach every patient who comes to me how to do a test themselves to identify what materials, what foods, what water, etc. are affected, because I find this is a must. I test everything in the shop myself, because you may see an elastane garment that's okay, there may be one that's not. How do you know? I teach people a kind of kinesiology where they can do a balance test, where they can test, they use their own bodies to test an item. As I say, the body knows. Our bodies know what's okay and what's not.
I did see a video that Richard was on the Pain Genie website, and they were using kinesiology.
Kinesiology,
yes. God
bless you.
God bless you. That was easy for me to say. And they were using it to actually, exactly what you said, to check whether the body was happy with that or not, which is quite interesting. I hadn't come across it before. That's going to be further investigation, I think, for myself and Steve to check into it and to give it a try and stuff. But Steve, you have a question there.
Yeah, well, it needs practice, that test, right? It needs practice.
Would it be? I mean, when Richard spoke to us about this, it must be a fortnight ago now, when he was down in my house, and when he mentioned this to us about the elastane, one of the first things that came into my head when I thought about it was that I could be having an allergic reaction. Like, I mean, let's say I'm lethargic or whatever. I mean, I'm guessing I could be having a reaction to something so simple as elastic in underwear. So, I mean, I'm guessing the only way, and this is going to sound silly, but I'm guessing the only way to kind of test for that would be go without underwear. Would it be something kind of just as simple as that?
Well, first of all, these reactions are primarily toxic reactions, not allergic reactions.
Right.
But that toxicity can cause allergic symptoms. Okay? Now, the question about going without, I think it's more a question of trying different garments. Okay?
Yeah.
Not going without something. If you know a kinesiologist, you should be able to bring your stuff to a kinesiologist for that person to test the stuff for you until you can develop the skill to test it yourself. Or else, if you, let's see, if people want to send me an email, I'll send them, I've got a list of firms that provide guaranteed organic clothing, and even a firm in America that provides replacement elastic braid, which is made from real rubber, not from synthetic rubbery stuff. My email is info@natural-medicine.ie, and anybody who wants information, I send the files I have on this elastane problem and sources of possible replacements for clothing and other things that I have discovered to do with the environment in recent times. I want to warn people also, for years I've known that what you call them, those beds, those mattresses, the memory foam mattresses, cause trouble for some people. Now bear in mind, we're not all clones. We're all different. So some people react to these things and some people don't because there are differences. But I think I discovered just recently why the memory foam is a problem. If it's polyurethane, the polyurethane is okay when you get it first, to begin with. But after some time of use, I think what's happening is that moisture from the body, heat from the body, when you're lying in a bed for some time, is activating a kind of a mold or a fungus, which can be inside the actual material. Maybe there isn't a mold. But anyway, the polyurethane, I think, is breaking down to release urethane, you see, which is toxic. So again, it's a bit like the elastane problem, where the polymer is breaking down to release chemicals. I think in some cases, the polyurethane can be breaking down. So people who don't feel well on their beds or feel stiff and unwell in the morning, they should try just change the mattress for a bit or sleep in a different bed.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's so much out there now that we know that can cause restlessness, or it could be, again, bad for our health. Again, we talk about the wireless technology, we talk about the water and the foods and everything else. And it just seems that we had Dr. Michael Kelly on from Kerry, and Dr. Michael Kelly did say to us, he said, it's very hard to stay healthy in an unhealthy environment.
I have my walls in the house inside painted with a special carbon material. I don't have the Wi-Fi on. I won't allow it here. I'm going to continue to insulate the house from Wi-Fi, from mobile phones, mobile phone masts, all this stuff. And at some stage, I expect I will have my power supply turned off at night as well, except for the essentials, like the fridge and so on. This is the way that one should go. And there again, some people can tolerate this stuff and others can't. And years ago, when the actual problem of chronic fatigue and ME first reared its head, there were some people who just could not stand mobile phones, electric radiation and so on. So this has been around for some time, this problem, and it's getting worse.
Yeah, well, you have
to protect yourself.
Yeah, we've had people on the show who suffer from hyper-electric sensitivity, which is what it's called. We had the three ladies on, and we had Ollie Johansson, Professor Ollie Johansson, on the show, and he was talking about that. And these ladies were going through hell. I mean, literally hell. And it's purely, the electricity and the mobile phone masts and everything else. And although it's recognised as a symptom in Sweden, over here, typical Irish government, they don't acknowledge it. And it's one of our little kind of projects of interest. We have an interest in the wireless technology and all that kind of stuff because of our background. And it's on the increase. I mean, you can't see, it's very hard to try and get away with it. And as you can say, you can paint your house with special RF shielding paint to stop or reduce the signals coming in as best you can. But it just seems that no matter where you turn, if it's in your clothes, it could be in your food, and you just have to be on your guard all the time. And to try and educate people, to try and educate somebody just who's in the matrix, so to speak, about all of this, you get the normal comment, you say you can't touch you can't do anything because everything's going to kill you, and you can't do this and you can't do that. And they just don't seem to understand that there is an agenda behind all of this at the end of the day, that they do actually want to kill us. That's why we're being sprayed and we're being affected. I mean, apart from making loads of money and a massive profit and using chemicals that are probably bad or banned in certain countries, but they get away with it. So there is an alternative agenda. I mean, have you looked into it any further than just what you do on a day-to-day basis to see what's behind it?
Oh, I have, just like yourselves. But I don't have any more information or proof on these theories than you have.
Okay.
I'd say the most immediate thing to be concerned about is just plain economics. Firms use this stuff because they want to sell products. And there is a barrier to get through here, and that is to get people's understanding and trust. Now, I know from working in this area for years that many people think I'm crazy and I'm nuts. But I don't care. All I can do is do my best to persuade them that there's a problem. And to explain to them and show them how to test for these poisons. That convinces them. They can see it for themselves. Now, that the question of the deliberate poisoning, etc., that's another big question. That may very well be. And, of course, one can see quite easily that if the agrochemical industry is making poisons and making us sick, that benefits the pharmaceutical industry, who makes drugs to stop our symptoms, and the process of making us sicker. And it also benefits the food industry because they can get their products lasting longer on the shelves, and it goes on and on.
Yes.
But you see, it's very hard. You can't prove all this.
Yeah.
And if people don't believe it, you're just wasting your time and just boring people.
Well, the great thing I seen, I seen a statement on Facebook, and I thought that's quite a good one. And it said, the longer the sell-by date, the worse the food is for you.
That makes sense, sure.
Doesn't that make sense?
And also, to try feeding it to the rats.
Yeah, exactly. And if they don't like it, well then, why should we eat it? We have a few more questions, and what we'll do is we'll go through the questions, and then we'll get on talking about the pain, Genie. So over to you, Steve.
Yes.
Okay, John, John on PIR was wondering, what would be your top 3 unhealthy foods that you recommend people should avoid completely in their diet?
Number 1, refined sugar. Okay?
Yep.
Number 2, foods that are prepared with fats, trans fats. Okay? There's too much misinformation about fats, but fats that are harmful are what are called trans fatty acids, and they come from the heating of unsaturated fatty acids like you get in sunflower oil, olive oil, and other oils. All these oils are very healthy until you heat them.
Yeah.
And then they're destroyed. They're turned into trans fats that are very harmful. Now, ironically, they discovered recently there is one trans fat that actually is healthy for us. Guess where you find that trans fat?
I'm gonna take an educated guess and say coconut oil.
No.
Oh, okay.
All coconut oil is very, very healthy. That's all very good.
Yeah.
But this particular trans fat is actually found in butter.
Oh, that's surprising.
That would be. I'm guessing it's real butter.
Yeah, real butter. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Not this fake stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, my father was told, and for years the cardiologists have been telling people, "Oh, don't take butter. You must take margarine." The margarine was rubbish. Years ago, it was rubbish.
Well, Steve, you tell Anthony about what you were told about the cheese in your place.
The what? The cheese?
Yeah, about the molecule one bit.
Oh no, that was actually the margarine, like the so-called butter that people buy today. There's, I actually work, Anthony, in a place that we supply ingredients to the likes of bakers and so on and so forth. And one of the head guys in our place, so I was talking to him one day about the benefits of coconut oil, etc. And he was talking about the likes of the I'm not going to mention any brand names, but the different products that you would see on the shelf, that are supposed to taste just like butter. He was saying that all of them are one molecule away from being plastic.
I can't comment on that. There are a lot of those products that are questionable, and I can't comment on any one.
Yeah.
Certainly the margarines of years ago were not good. And also they had some nickel in them, because nickel was the catalyst used to hydrogenate the oils. So these days the butter replacements, I don't think they're as healthy as the butter, but I have to test each individual item. And I do test people for these. We're all different and we'll have different reactions, but I am aware of the fact, I do know that butter is good and healthy. The coconut oil is exceptionally good for cooking with and for eating. It's been found that the medium-length fatty acids in the coconut oil is actually very helpful to prevent and to treat Alzheimer's disease.
Excellent.
That's right. Yeah, we had Dr. Mary Newport on. She gave us a great interview in relation to how the benefits that she had with the coconut oil with her husband.
He suffered from Alzheimer's.
It's true.
Yeah, no, it's
true.
very good.
And, I just want to interject here something. What is very, very good is turmeric, the herb, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Indian herb. Now, at the beginning of Western medicine, Hippocrates, the founder of Western medicine, he said let food be your medicine and medicine be your food. And he was perfectly right. Turmeric can actually replace, they say, about 14 pharmaceutical drugs, right? Have the same effect as those drugs without the side effects. So it is an amazing herb, turmeric.
Yeah, I actually take it organic turmeric on my dinner.
Yes.
You know, when I have dinner, now we've got myself and Steve have got some organic Celtic sea salt, which we got off Clive. And when I'm having my dinner, I normally use the organic turmeric and the organic sea salt.
All very good.
All very good, and stick it in the dinner, and, you know, it's brilliant. And it tastes nice, and it's fine. And it's just, you know, it's just a way to, it's very hard to get away from a bad environment, whether, you know, there's chemicals in certain things, but it's all about reduction. If you can avoid certain things that you're aware of, then all the better. You know, all about reduction, yeah. I think is the important thing. Now, let's get talking about the Pain Genie, because we have, you obviously are an avid user, and you recommend the Pain Genie. And we have a seminar on the 21st of June in the Ardboyne Hotel at 1 o'clock. I know we asked you if you could make it, but you're to put his money where his mouth is in a very nice way. And Richard kindly drove up from Kerry and dropped it into us on his way back to the UK. And he used it on Steve and Steve's wife and myself. I mean, Steve was in pain and his wife was in pain. And, you know, Steve thought it was so good, he's actually gone off and buying one. And we are actually getting one donated by a listener. It hasn't come in yet, but much appreciated to the listener.
Richard, years ago, the first instance, at a seminar in the UK, he invited me to his place and he demonstrated it to me, and I was quite impressed. But really, I think my biggest impression I had was when a chap came to me. He came for a test. He had some various problems, and one of his problems was that he could not for years bend his knees, crouch down and get up again. If he crouched down, he was stuck there. He would have to lie down, straighten the legs out and then get up slowly. So I said, well, I'm sure I can treat that with the Pain Genie for you. So I treated him, the Pain Genie. After treatment, when it was finished, I said to him, now, try that. So he said, okay. He stood up and he bent his knees a little bit. And he said, I don't believe it. I said, try bending even more. He crouched even more. He said, I don't believe it. And I said, try even more. He went all the way down to the floor. He said, I don't believe it. And this time he was shouting. And he's all up and down. Something he couldn't do for years. So that really convinced me. That was an amazing switch. Another case was some person that I had been treating with had a very bad elbow injury, a broken elbow, and I saw him and told me that he had been getting physiotherapy repeatedly for many, many months without much improvement. With one or two treatments, that also improved enormously. So I do know that it works. I've seen it curing a headache and toothache very quickly. Now, of course, you must remember, everybody's different. And in some situations, there are chronic situations causing a person pain. And the Pain Genie may relieve the pain for a certain time. But if there's something underlying it, it may be necessary to actually investigate why the pain is there, what's causing it. And many people have had their pains suppressed with drugs for years. And this is, again, it's like, you know, the Colorado Dam, or the Hoover Dam, or the Colorado River. If you're blocking stuff in with drugs, then just a few treatments of the Pain Genie may not clear it. You may have to go through a process of detoxifying from the drugs as well. So each case is different. Yeah.
No, that's understandable. Steve, you've got questions there, but I don't know whether you want to talk to Tony about your experience with the Pain Genie.
Yeah, well, I think I did say to you before we come on, I did I? Yes, I
just a quick mention, but you're happy. I mean, you're impressed with it.
Yeah, I mean, I was skeptical, and after we had the meet up, we'd done the interview with Richard, and it all went well. And then afterwards, we were kind of talking away, and we said, Richard said, yeah, he was going to be heading up to Dublin, so on his way, we decided we'd hook up, and we did. Now, I've had an injury to my shoulder. It's been at me for a long time, and I went through the painkillers, rubbing the deep heat into it, and all sorts of creams and potions, and I got a little bit of relief, but the pain never went away. It was always there. Used to keep me awake at night. But after the meet up with Richard, he gave me one 15-minute treatment with the pain genie, and the pain went almost instantaneously, or instantly. And again, as I said, I was pain-free for 5 days after that. I mean, no pain at all whatsoever. And even in work, what I do, I mean, I'm lifting boxes and bags every day, and you're talking about lifting 25 kilo bags several times a day, and it didn't come back. And now 5 days later, it did kind of start coming back, and it is back now. So I'm kind of just taking painkillers again to try and suppress the pain. But I have ordered a pain genie because I was so impressed with it. And my wife, who is a bigger skeptic than I am, Anthony, she tried it as well, and even she, it was an arm injury, an elbow injury that she had. She fell, and it took her pain away completely. Yeah. And I think it was about maybe 2-3 days later before it actually returned. But then she only had not even 10 minutes with Richard.
Yeah. It's important to remember that this device helps the body to heal itself.
Yes.
We're always talking about the body and its homeostatic mechanisms of correcting and healing itself. This device helps the body to do that. Now, with another treatment, your problem may go away again, and it may come back. Sometimes, as I say, there can be underlying problems, some chronic issue, like infection in the tooth, for instance, because these hidden infections in teeth do cause trouble in joints. There can be many things that are going on there for you. And that's why it's important to have a further investigation if things are not in the long term clearing up.
Yeah.
But generally, it's very good for things like injuries, for healing injuries. Now, yes, Richard is giving a talk in the hotel, the Ardboyne Hotel.
That's right, yeah.
And it's, let's see, when is it? It's on the
21st of this month.
The 21st of June at 1 p.m.
Yeah.
So he's giving a talk and demonstration. Now, I'd advise anybody who can to go along to that, because they'll see for themselves the actual device in action and even can try it out. Because he is giving a training session in Sandyford later in July. And that is a 2-day training course. You can get information on that. I'll give you Richard's number. It's 0044 7833 718 635. So, if you go along to his talk in Navan and see what he's doing, then you can think about.
It's going to be important. We have to organise with Richard and see what we can sort out. The funny thing is that there's always a couple, isn't there, in the barrel that have never seen the pain genie, have never used it, have never had it tested on themselves, and they'll turn around and it's snake oil salesman, it's a scam, blah de blah de blah. And I am amazed at these people that they can make that kind of judgment without actually saying anything. And fair play to anybody that turns up at the seminar in June. You know, the whole idea of that seminar is purely for people to come along and see the pain genie in action. Now, we did say to Richard, do you want us to arrange for anybody to be there so at least you can demo? And Richard said, no, we said, just let everybody turn up, and if anybody wants to step forward and have their if they have any pain, we can actually try the pain genie on them. Now we're happy with that, but now we've had 1 or 2 people who've heard about the pain genie and they've put their hand up and said, well, I'd like that. If he's looking for like a guinea pig, I'm happy to try that out. So we might have 1 or 2 people, but it depends how many people Richard wants to treat in the time that we have down there. But I would just recommend, as I say, people coming down. It's purely for people to see the pain genie in action. And if you decide after everything that's taken place that no, it's no good and you're not convinced, hey, that's fine with us. Not a problem at all.
Richard's email is richard at paingenie, PAINGENIE, all one word, .net. And the training seminar is the 11th and 12th of July in Bewley's Hotel in Leopardstown. Now, can I make a comment there? I'm tired of hearing about this comment about snake oil. Do you know, in fact, that snake oil is actually beneficial? We were talking about fatty acids.
Yeah.
It so happens that snake oil actually is very helpful essential fatty acids.
Excellent. We'll have to pass that on to the people who are sceptical.
So I'm tired of hearing people talking about the snake oil salesman. The joke is on themselves.
Yeah, it is.
It's ignorance.
Yeah, it is ignorance. There is ignorance.
And it brings you to the category of all the people over the years in the United States who are trying to bring new medicines along, trying to go against the tide of the American Medical Association that was trying to clamp down on homeopathy and herbs and chiropractic and all this. They tried to stop everything, and they used pejorative terms like snake oil salesman. They still use it today.
Yeah.
You know, bring somebody down and then to try and block their medicine.
Yeah. Well, we say to people, look, while they're worrying about their own pain and they're sitting in pain and saying this, that, you know, with snake oil, people who have some, obviously, a high level of intelligence and who will come down to the seminar will see it for themselves and make their own judgment. I mean, that's the practical, logical thing to do, is say, well, let me see it. I want to see it in action. And that's the whole idea. And fair play to the people who are coming down and they'll see it in action. I'll tell you what we're going to do, Anthony. We've got a few questions, and then we'll start winding things up. But over to you, Steve. You have 3 questions for Anthony.
Yes, I do.
Okay, first of all, I recommend people do go along to the seminar in Navan. So your questions.
Yes, with the not only the pain genie, but with the other treatments and that you do, Anthony, what success rates do you have? Would it be high success rates? Yeah.
Yeah, it's high success rate. I can't put a figure on it because I tell you, I see people. A lot of people see them once. I'll never hear from them again.
Yeah.
But very often, years later, somebody just comes to me and I say, "Who told you about me?" And they say, so-and-so, oh, I remember that name. How is he or how is she? Oh, they're doing fine. Look them up and I say, yes, that was somebody I saw years ago. So I can't put a figure on it because most people, I don't see them again.
Yeah.
But I do know, I get a lot of people come back to me and say they're feeling much better. I do know their success.
Yeah, because
it's possibly of the order of 80+%.
Yeah, because I have seen on the website there that you don't have any testimonials up yet, and I think a lot of people, well, you know yourself, when people are looking, they like to see testimonials. They like to see what other people have to say. So, success rate of 80+%. That's pretty high.
I would suspect. You know, I haven't had time to do testimonials because I'm extremely busy trying to catch up and keep up with my patients.
Yeah. Okay. Question number 2. Graham was wondering, can you ask Anthony about his thoughts on organic cinnamon? Graham says he's had some great results on diabetes using cinnamon sugar, using cinnamon, a sugar scavenger.
Cinnamon is one of those herbs that does work very well for helping to treat diabetes. That and also licorice. I tell my patients who are trying to control blood sugar to use chromium and cinnamon and licorice. And you can get a tea that's got both cinnamon and licorice in it.
Yeah.
If that person wants to send me an email, I can send him a file with some very powerful treatments for diabetes, for type 2 diabetes.
Is it true though, Anthony, Sorry, is it true that cinnamon? This is just something I heard because I like cinnamon myself, but I was told that if you do have high blood pressure, that it can kind of add to the problem. Is that true?
I don't know about that.
Okay.
To be truthful, blood pressure raised by cinnamon. I don't know about that. That's new to me. I can't tell you.
Yeah. Oh, well, again,
a search on the web should answer that question.
Yeah, it's just something I heard, and I just remembered it now when I'm seeing that question there from Graham. And organic.
Can I interrupt there?
Yes.
People don't realise, the body's not stupid. Often people have raised blood pressure and other symptoms because the body is trying to do something.
Yeah.
If you have raised blood pressure the body may be trying to get the blood flowing faster through the kidney or the liver to try and detoxify, because you're overloaded with drugs, or you have too much salt, or whatever it is. And it means something is wrong. But in medicine, unfortunately, the blood pressure is high, and instead of investigating why it's high, a drug is given to actually counteract it. So you're working against the body's attempts all the time. That's why I'm so keen on investigating what's wrong, what's causing it.
Okay. Well, Graham he has actually sent us over his email address. I've just posted that into the chat box there on Skype for you. And the last question for this evening is organic clothing that you spoke of earlier. You said you had some links for that. Is the organic clothing much dearer than what you would be getting in the local, I don't know, Dunn stores or Pennies or one of those type of places?
It would be more expensive, yes. I can't put figures on it. I haven't bought an awful lot of it because I have managed to identify with my testing otherwise clothing that's on sale in the regular shops that is okay. I haven't had to go to these specialist places because I can do the actual testing myself.
Okay, that's good. All right, Tony, we've reached that time. We have to let you go, unfortunately. I have to wrap up the show. Thanks again for coming on. Brilliant information, and good luck with what you do. And we'll give you a promotion and let people know that you're there, and get so you can pop down. I do believe one of our listeners is going to be going down to you during the week. I think there's a booking in there. So it's great to have you on. I'm going to pass you over to Steve, and Steve's going to get all your details. So let people know where you are.
I appreciate that. Thanks very much. I enjoyed that. Thank you indeed.
Tony, I think
what you're doing, lads.
We've enjoyed it immensely as well. Hopefully we will be able to get you back on at a later date. I do have your website here. I think we have promoted your website several times on the show, natural-medicine.ie. Is there any other links that you want to throw out there, or anything else that you want to say in your closing statement?
No.
No. Okay.
Sorry, not any more links. I did say I would send information to those that are interested in the toxic problems. So, do you have there's a chat room that I can link to see who's interested in the information, or else just give people my email.
Well, you can do, Tony, is you can send it to us, and if anybody wants the information, they can just request it through our email address. That would probably be the best thing to do.
Okay, I'll do that. Now, yes, there is another comment. The business with the general pollution is serious, and the trouble is that our regulatory authorities allow the farmers to do this. They allow manufacturers to poison our clothing. We need to tell our politicians, look, I don't like this. I don't want these poisons in my food or in my water, whether it's fluoride or whether it's herbicide or whatever it is. And also things like the aspartame, these pollutions, the authorities allow these things. They're harmful, they're unhealthy. It's a bit like the trouble with the cigarettes.
Yeah.
The time will come when, like cigarettes, these various things will be banned. The sooner the herbicides are banned, the better. Well,
that's what we're trying to do here, and open your mind, Tony, as you know, is to try to educate and promote and have people like yourself coming on to tell people about what's happening, and then let them make their own decision as to what they want to do regarding their own health. But, having the information is first and foremost. Once they have the information, the ignorance goes away, and now they're informed, and then they can make an informed choice. So that's why what we try and do, and with the help of yourself and people like Richard and other doctors coming on, it's a big help for us to get the message out there.
Very good. I'll send you information on the items that I have observed and kind of monographs I have written about these various problems, and I'll send them to you so you can pass them on to others. And when I update them, as I do update them, I'll send them on to you as well for distribution to others.
Brilliant. Well, Tony, can you just stay there with us? We're going to be wrapping up the show now. We want to have a quick chat with you before you go. So we're just going to turn down your microphone here. We're going to finish up the show, and then we'll get back to you in about 5 minutes. Can you hang on for us?
That's fine. Sure thing.
Thanks. Okay, brilliant stuff. That's Anthony Hughes, and you can pop over to his website at natural-medicine.ie. I believe that's the website address. natural-medicine.ie. The links are posted on the chat room there.
And as Anthony has said, anyone who wants to contact him via email, just pop along to the website there. You will see there's a hell of a lot of information, great information on the website. There is a contact link there. You have his phone number, his email address, even the GPS coordinates to his place of business. So yeah, just drop him an email, and I'm sure he will get back to you.
Brilliant stuff. Now, I don't know whether you're aware, Steve, but the Sunday we're actually doing the Paint Genie demo is Father's Day as well.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So no, and we won't be giving out.
Are you making an announcement?
No.
You're not going to be a dad?
No, I was just going to say, we won't be giving out free Paint Genies. We won't be saying, and there's one for everybody in the audience. No, that's not going to happen.
No, you might get a sticker though.
You'll get a sticker. There'll be one for everybody in the audience. You'll get a sticker. And the T-shirts will be very cheap. So on the day, if you want a cheap OYM T-shirt and promote the radio show and help us fund the radio show, they'll be available for €10 only. I mean, what can you get for these days for €10? Nothing.
Nothing.
You know?
Absolutely nothing.
So they'll benefit from the T-shirt. So let's touch base on, before we wrap up, let's touch base on who's going to be on next week. Now we have a lady coming on called Karen Morris, not Karen, Karen Morris, and she's going to be talking about time banking. Now, as I said earlier, there's major work involved in this, and if we decide to go down the road with the time banking, if we get the permission to use their system, we're going to need volunteers. People will need to volunteer and form their own time banking groups and communities and get it together and get it up and running. It's not a 5-minute job. There's a bit involved in it, but the benefits are just phenomenal. And if you want to check out time banking, go to the front page of OYM, and we have a video there and information all about time banking and what it is. This is going to make a big difference. Not only will you be benefiting yourself and benefiting your community, but you won't be paying tax on it because it's all about labour and not the money, and you'll be sticking one to the government. So that's the benefit of time banking. And the other person we're going to have on after that is a chap called James Miller from a website called the Public Banking Forum of Ireland. And I believe they're looking at setting up an alternative banking system for Ireland. So that kind of ties in with time banking as well nicely. So that's the plan of attack anyway for next week. Also next Saturday we have the 15th, we have the United We Strike Radio Marathon. We'll probably be doing a half-hour show on that, Steve. We'll do that and have a chat. So if you want to tune into the United We Strike Radio Marathon, that's next Saturday. And that's really it. Just as I say, the seminar is the 21st. Don't forget that. If you can make it, it'd be great. It'd be the Paint Genie seminar. Just go down to the Ardboyne, 1 o'clock. We're going to be limited on time, so if you can get there on time, it'll be a big help. The parking is free. There is parking there as free parking, so it's no problem there. And there are buses going from Bazaris, Dublin, up to just outside the hotel. It's just outside the Navan, so if you can make it, it'd be great to see you there. Don't be afraid to come up and say hello to us. We'll be there. On the top table. I think that's the plan of attack anyway. The
top table, it's a wedding they're going to, is it?
Well, they do have wedding functions as well.
Yes.
But we won't be videoing this seminar, by the way. There won't be a video to catch you later. You know, if you're not there, you won't see it, and that's it. So unfortunately, we don't have the resources to do that either. There's only so much that we can do. So if you can get there, that'd be great. But for myself, I'll just say good night. Take it easy, Alan James, and have a safe week. We'll catch you next week.
Okay, and again, the links are on the chat rooms there to the website there for Anthony Hughes and also for John Flaherty, so do check them out. Again, both of gentlemen have said if you drop them an email, they will reply to you. So you can't get fairer than that. I'm not sure exactly who's on with Vin tonight, but people on the PIR stream, stay tuned for Vin anyway. We'll be here at 9 o'clock, and we'll do it all again at same time, 7 to 9 p.m. next Sunday. So until then, good night, and we'll catch you next week. Take care. Bye bye.
Open your mind.